Newcastle's Walter Scott is said to be one of the first self-made millionaires in Britain. He must not be confused with the famous novelist of the same name. One of his business interests was publishing, but he himself didn't write books. On his death, Walter Scott left almost £1.5 million. That would be more than 500 million in today's money. Not bad for someone from humble beginnings. Walter was born in 1826 in Abbeytown in Cumberland, named after the 12th century abbey of Home Cultrum. He was the second of 6 children, born to Samuel and Mary Scott. His father, an innkeeper and farmer, died when Walter was 7 years old. After leaving the village school, Walter was apprenticed to a stonemason in Wigton, some 7 miles from his home. Walter Scott qualified as a mason at the age of 20 and immediately started work with the Caledonian Railway Company, building the station at Gretna Green for the new railway line between England and Scotland. As a qualified mason, he was relatively well paid, earning 33 shillings a week, approximately £158 in today's money. It was his next job which brought Walter to Newcastle. In 1848, he began to work on the new central station. Here he must have made some good business links, because a year later he set up business himself as a builder. From then on, the work never stopped, and he soon became one of the country's leading civil engineering contractors. The size and variety of Scott's business projects is striking. Railways continue to play a part. Notably, it was Scott's company that built the first underground tunnel for the Tube Railway in London. The line running from King William Street under the Thames to Stockwell, now part of the Northern Line, was opened in November 1890 by Edward, Prince of Wales. Scott's company also built the Woolwich Foot Tunnel, which ran under the Thames, connecting Woolwich to the docks and shipyards on the north bank of the river. Although the technology was basic, the tunnel was dug out by hand. It is still used today. Railways were expanding rapidly during this period, and Scott picked up many contracts to build new lines, especially for the North Eastern Railway Company, including doubling the main line northwards from Newcastle Central Station to Heaton. Scott was also responsible for building many docks during his long career, including Ayr, Silloth, Hartlepool and Newcastle. These were huge engineering projects. The new quay wall at Newcastle, built in the 1870s, was 1,000 yards long, and its foundations comprised massive cast iron cylinders, 40 feet long and filled with concrete and granite. Bridges were another aspect of the work carried out by Walter Scott's company. In a period of only 3 years, they built 3 major bridges. The original Redruth Bridge with its 3 triangular peaks, the 150-foot-high viaduct over Skelton Beck with its 13 arches of 60-foot span, and the Biker and Glasshouse bridges crossing the Ouseburn. Scott also built and restored buildings. The Mechanics' Institute in North Shields was his first significant recorded contract. This was to become the first free library on Tyneside. Among the many buildings he constructed in Newcastle were offices in what is now Granger Street. One of these, Victoria Chambers, was used as the company offices. He also constructed the Newcastle Lunatic Asylum at Cox Lodge, later known as St. Nicholas's Hospital, an extension to the Royal Station Hotel next to the Central Station, and also the Tyne Theatre and Opera House in Westgate Road, Newcastle, which was completed in 1867. It has had a checkered history, being at one point a down-at-heel cinema, but it has recently been refurbished and is now once more in use as a theatre. Churches were another source of work for Scott's company. Among those he built was St George's Church on the seafront at Cullercoats and St James Congregational Church in Northumberland Road, Newcastle. He also carried out restoration work on St Nicholas Church, now the cathedral, and St Mary's Cathedrals in Newcastle, and also St James Church in Benwell. The 19th century was a time of rapid growth in the population of Tyneside, and this created opportunities for land and property development for an astute investor like Scott. In many cases, he would buy land, divide it into plots, and sell or lease it to other builders to build homes. One such was the purchase of 21 acres of land in the west end of Newcastle. This site in North Elsick, later known as Arthur's Hill, was estimated to be large enough to accommodate up to 400 houses. But Scott did not restrict his activities to construction. During his lifetime, he owned ships, quarries, brickworks, steelworks, hotels, chemical works, and coal mines, and even entered the publishing business. Publishing was a byproduct of his building activities. In the 1880s, he was engaged to build a printing factory at Felling for the Tyne Publishing Company. The company lacked the money to pay, so Scott offered them a personal mortgage. When the printing company failed in 1882, Scott found himself owning a factory, printing machines, and binding equipment, as well as an experienced group of workers. Despite his lack of experience of printing or publishing, he decided to revive the business rather than try to sell a failed company. The enterprise was successful, and the Walter Scott Publishing Company became a household name, mainly specialising in printing classics at low cost for the mass market. Its output included foreign authors. It has the distinction of being the first to publish Ibsen in English. As a result of this impressive range of business interests, Walter Scott became one of the biggest employers in the region, employing more than 7,000 people at times. He continued to be actively involved in business until his death. Even in his 80s, he maintained a seat on the boards of at least 18 companies, including leadworks, steelworks, coal mines, and shipyards. Scott lived in Bentinck House, which is on Bentinck Road, Elsick. He lived there with his wife Anne and family from 1877 until his death in 1910. He also owned the Beauclerk estate near Riding Mill. When he was knighted in 1907, he became the first baronet of Beauclerk. Early in 1910, Scott went to stay on the French Riviera to help him recover from what he believed was a temporary illness, and it was there that he died and is buried. Walter Scott is commemorated on a headstone above the Scott family grave in St James Graveyard. His name is also to be seen in several places inside the church, as he was a generous benefactor of St James. In 1894, he paid for the new spire, clock, and peal of bells, as well as a new vestry, porch, and baptistry. After his death, his family paid for the completion and furnishing of a church hall on the other side of Atkinson Road. This became known as the Scott Memorial Hall. It was sold to a housing association in 1978 and demolished to make way for a block of flats.